Sonic Stories!
When you're sitting in your house, snuggled up and quiet as a mouse, that special time is near. Some Sonic stories you'll be hearing. Sonic stories, the gingerbread house is so fine. Sonic stories, better not visit when it's baking time.
Sonic Stories!
The story of Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, a very poor woodcutter lived in a tiny cottage in the forest with his two children, Hansel and Gretel. Their stepmother was a mean woman who would always complain.
There is not enough food in this house for us all. There are too many mouths to feed. We must get rid of those two brats,
She declared.
I know, but I just don't know what to do,
said the woodcutter. Unfortunately, the woodcutter would hear this conversation all too often.
Take them miles from home. So far they can never find their way back. Maybe someone will find them and give them a home.
Hansel overheard his parents' conversation and began to comfort Gretel.
Don't worry. If they do leave us in the forest, we'll find a way home,
he said.
And slipping out of the house through the window, he filled his pockets with little white pebbles.
All night long, the woodcutter's wife continued to talk about deserting Hansel and Gretel all the way until dawn.
Morning came, and their stepmother gave them each a piece of bread for their breakfast. Later on that morning, their father and stepmother led them away into the forest.
But as they went into the depths of the trees, Hansel would drop a little white pebble here and there on the ground to lead them back home.
We're going to chop some wood, and we will be right back.
The father made a fire, and Hansel and Gretel lay down to sleep. When they awoke, it was dark and scary, and they found that they were all alone. Gretel began to cry.
Oh, Hansel, our parents have abandoned us. How will we ever find our way home?
Hansel felt scared too, but he tried to hide his feelings to comfort his sister.
Don't cry. Trust me. I swear I'll take you home, with or without father.
Luckily, the moon was full that night, and Hansel waited till its cold light shone through the trees.
Now give me your hand. We'll get home safely, you'll see.
The tiny white pebbles gleamed in the moonlight, and eventually the children found their way home. They crept through a half-open window without waking their parents. Cold, tired, but thankful to be home again, they slipped into bed. To her dismay, the stepmother discovered that Hansel and Gretel had returned, and she became extremely angry.
How did they find their way back? Tomorrow I will take them so deep into the forest that they will never find a way back,
she told herself. Hiding her anger from the children, she locked her bedroom door, cornering their father and punishing him for failing to carry out her orders. The weak-willed woodcutter protested, torn as he was between the shame of abandoning his children and for fear of disobeying his cruel wife. The wicked stepmother kept Hansel and Gretel under lock and key all day, with nothing for supper but a sip of water and some hard bread. All night long, husband and wife quarrelled until, when dawn came, the woodcutter led the children out into the forest once more. Hansel, however, had not eaten his bread, and as he walked through the trees, he left a trail of crumbs behind him to mark the way. A cunning plan, but the little boy had forgotten about the hungry birds that lived in the forest. When they saw Hansel's would-be trail, They flew along behind, and in no time at all, ate all the crumbs. Again, as quiet as a mouse, the woodcutter snuck off and left his two children all by themselves.
Hansel, I'm scared. How will we find home this time?
I've left a trail, like last time.
Hansel whispered to Gretel consolingly.
Let's find somewhere to hide for a while and then follow it home.
But when night fell, they saw that to their horror, all the crumbs had gone.
I'm cold and hungry and I want to go home,
Wept Gretel bitterly.
Don't be afraid. I'm here to look after you.
Hansel tried to encourage his sister, but he too shivered when he glimpsed frightening shadows and evil eyes around them in the darkness. All night the two children huddled together for warmth at the foot of a large tree. When the sun rose again, Hansel and Gretel started to wander about the forest, seeking anything like a path to lead them home, but all hope soon faded. They were well and truly lost. On they walked and walked, till suddenly they came upon a strange cottage in the middle of a glade.
This cottage!
Gasped Hansel as he broke a lump of plaster off the wall.
It's made of gingerbread! Gretel, we're saved!
This is icing!
Exclaimed Gretel, putting another piece of wall in her mouth. Starving, but delighted, the children began to eat whatever pieces of the cottage they could get a hold of.
Isn't this delicious?
Said Gretel, with her mouth full. She had never tasted anything so nice.
We'll stay here!
Hansel declared, munching a bit of chocolate.
They were just about to try a bit of the biscuit door when it slowly creaked open.
Well, well, who is eating down my house?
Said an old woman, peering out with a crafty look, letting out a cackle as she exclaimed,
Quite the sweet tooth you two share, eh? Come in, come in. You've nothing to fear.
Went on the old woman. Unluckily for Hansel and Gretel, the gingerbread house belonged to an old witch, her trap for catching unwary victims. The two children wandered inside, completely unaware of what would happen to them. The witch fed both the children so much that they simply fell asleep. Upon awakening, Hansel had been locked in a cage.
You're nothing but skin and bones. I shall fatten you up and eat you.
Said the witch to Hansel.
Then I'll make a meal of you too.
She told Gretel grimly. As luck would have it, the witch had very bad eyesight, and when Gretel cunningly smeared butter on her glasses, she could see even less. Time passed, and every day the witch would check if he was getting any fatter.
Let me touch that finger, boy. Let me see how fat you are today.
She would say. Gretel had brought her brother a chicken bone, and when the witch would touch his finger, Hansel held out the bone instead.
You're still much too thin.
She complained.
When will you become plump?
This carried on for some days, the same thing over and over again, until the witch grew tired of waiting.
Light the oven.
She told Gretel.
We're going to have a tasty roasted boy today.
A little later, hungry and impatient, she went on.
Run and see if the oven is hot enough.
Gretel returned, whimpering.
I can't tell if it's hot enough or not.
Angrily, the witch screamed at the little girl.
Useless child. All right, I'll see for myself.
But when the witch bent down to peer inside the oven and check the heat, Gretel gave her a tremendous push and slammed the oven door shut. Just like that, the children's terrible fate had been changed. Gretel ran to set her brother free, and they made quite sure that the oven door was tightly shut. Indeed, just to be on the safe side, they fastened it firmly with a large padlock. Then they stayed for several days to eat some more of the house, till they discovered amongst the witch's belongings a huge chocolate egg and a casket of gold coins, and not the chocolate ones.
The witch is gone, so we'll take this treasure with us, find father, and move far away from that vile stepmother.
With ambitious attitudes, they filled a large basket with food and set off into the forest to search for their way home. This time, luck was with them, and on the second day they saw their father come out of the house towards them, weeping.
I sent that horrid woman away, to never bother us again. Come home with me now, my dear children.
The two children hugged their father.
Promise you'll never desert us again.
Never, my dear. Not in a million years,
pleaded the woodcutter. After reuniting with their father, Hansel and Gretel told him of their escape and of the horrible witch, and also showed him their treasure.
Look, father, we're rich now. You'll never have to chop wood again.
And they all lived happily ever after.